The current economic downturn has put many small business owners in a cash flow crunch. In this case study, we're going to demonstrate the cash flow maximizer strategy, which is a unique way to manage your current cash flow more efficiently in order to pay off your debt in half the time. Here we have Joe the plumber, who is 40 years old and currently earns $250,000 from his plumbing business. Joe's assets consist of a home worth $400,000, and he has $20,000 in his bank account and $200,000 in his 401k. Joe's only debt consists of a $316,500 mortgage and just $2,000 in credit cards. When Joe looked at his Federal Truth in Lending disclosure statement that comes with any mortgage contract, he realized that he's paying his bank a ton of money in interest payments. As you can see, Joe has a 30-year mortgage with a fixed rate of 6.5%, and over the 30-year period, Joe will pay $720,178 in total payments, of which $403,678 in interest will be paid to the bank. In other words, Joe will pay for his house more than twice. Now let's look at the conventional way that Joe and virtually everyone else in the country uses to pay their mortgage. First, they deposit their paycheck into their checking account, and then they pay all their bills from that same checking account. In this example, Joe's mortgage payment is $2,000. Each month, Joe takes $7,000 of income from his business and deposits it into his checking account. Then Joe writes a $2,000 check to pay his mortgage payment, plus $4,000 in checks to cover all his other bills. That's $7,000 in his account and $6,000 out of his account. So at the end of every month, Joe has an extra $1,000 laying in his checking account that earns 0% interest. Now let's look at the results Joe can achieve if he used the cash flow maximizer strategy to manage his $1,000 a month in excess cash. In this example, Joe takes out a $25,000 open-end line of credit and withdraws $12,000 from that line of credit and uses it to make a lump sum payment towards his mortgage. The balance of $13,000 left in the line of credit Joe will use for emergency funds, which, by the way, costs him nothing if he never uses it. Then each month, Joe's $7,000 paycheck is deposited directly into that line of credit account instead of Joe's checking account. Joe then also writes $6,000 in checks directly from that same line of credit to cover all his bills, including his mortgage. The line of credit essentially becomes Joe's checking account. In the first month, the $1,000 excess cash flow is used to reduce the line of credit from $12,000 to $11,000, and the balance owed on the mortgage is now $304,214. The cash flow maximizer method provides a better use of Joe's $1,000 in excess cash flow by using it to pay down the average daily balance of his mortgage rather than leaving the money lay in his 0% return checking account. In other words, paying down 6.5% debt that he owes on his mortgage is better than getting a 0% return. Now in month 2, Joe follows the same exact procedure and deposits his $7,000 paycheck into the line of credit and writes $6,000 in checks from the line of credit to cover his mortgage payment and other bills. The $1,000 excess now reduces the line of credit to $10,000. The balance owed on the mortgage is now $303,861. This procedure is repeated again in months 3 through 12. By month 12, Joe has reduced his $12,000 line of credit to 0, and his mortgage debt from $316,500 to $300,227. Now he can start the same procedure all over again. So in month 13, the next year, Joe withdraws $12,000 again from the same line of credit and makes a lump sum payment of that $12,000 into his primary mortgage. And he repeats the same 12-month process over and over each year until the entire mortgage is paid off. Here's a table demonstrating this monthly process, and it also compares the conventional method with the cash flow maximizer method of paying down your mortgage. As you can see, at the end of the first year, if Joe would have used the conventional method of paying his mortgage, he would owe a balance of $312,962. Using the cash flow maximizer system, he only owes $300,227. Joe hasn't changed his spending habits one bit. He's just using his cash flow more efficiently. If Joe repeats this process each year, the interest savings and equity buildup begins to accelerate, and he will completely pay off his original $316,500 mortgage in a little less than 13 years. Whereas with the conventional method, he would still owe $246,633, or 78% of his mortgage. Again, Joe is using this strategy to dramatically reduce his mortgage without changing his spending habits or his financial lifestyle one bit. Now let's compare the results of our cash flow maximizer method with two other popular methods of paying down the mortgage: the conventional method that virtually everyone uses, and the bi-monthly method, which few people use today. Using the conventional method, Joe will pay his home off in the 30-year timetable. If he decides to use the bi-weekly method and pay twice a month, his home would be paid off in about 24 years, and Joe ends up saving over $92,000 in interest expenses. However, by using the cash flow maximizer strategy and drawing $12,000 out of an open-end line of credit each year to pay down his mortgage, Joe can pay off his home in about 13 years and save a little over $252,000 in interest expenses, even after paying the $4,296 charge to cover the use of his line of credit over those 13 years. Now, after 13 years, Joe is now 53 years old and his home is completely paid off. He now has 12 more years until he retires at age 65. If Joe wants, he can invest the extra $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year. Plus, in addition, he can also invest a $2,000 a month mortgage payment that he will no longer be paying. That's $36,000 a year in extra cash flow Joe can now invest. If Joe earns a rate of return of 5% on this extra money, it will grow to $595,663 in 12 years when Joe's 65 years old and ready for retirement. The cash flow maximizer strategy is no magic pill. It's just a much better way to manage your current cash flow so you can pay off any debt a lot faster without ever going on a budget or changing your standard of living.